Good morning, boys and girls. So for today's read aloud is Domain 12, Lesson 4, Mary McLeod Bethune. This is her. Mary Jane McLeod was born a long time ago. In 1875 in South Carolina on her parents' small farm. Mary's parents had 17 children. Mary was the 15th child. Friends, can you imagine having 17 brothers or sisters? That's what it was like for Mary. Mary was the only member of her family to go to school and receive an education. Her brothers and sisters were needed to work on the family farm. However, it wasn't an easy thing for Mary to go to school. She walked about 5 miles to school each day, and then she walked home again. So if she walked 5 miles there, and then she had to walk 5 miles back, how many miles a day did she walk? Yes, 10. That is a lot of walking, friends. Mary didn't mind. Going to school was a privilege that few African American children had, especially girls. Mary was an excellent student. She learned easily and quickly. Mary would race home each day to teach her brothers and sisters the things she had learned at school. Mary also taught her neighbors' children. Mary's family was so proud of her. Remember back then, boys and girls couldn't go to school like the boys. The boys always went to school. It was the girls who stayed home to tend to the house or cook the dinner or take care of the children. So this was a big deal that Mary was able to go to school at this time. When Mary was 13 years of age, she received a scholarship to study at a school for African American girls. The school was called Scotia Seminary in North Carolina. Mary's mother was so proud of her. She made her a special dress so that Mary would look nice when she went to her new school. Mary was sad to leave her family. They were sad to see her go, but everyone knew that Mary was going to do wonderful things with her life. So when you earn a scholarship, which you guys might be able to do when you're in high school, you are given money to help pay for your education. So if you earn a scholarship in high school, you can use that money and put towards your tuition or the money you're going to owe the college when you go there. After attending Scotia Seminary, Mary received another scholarship, this time to a school in Chicago. After graduating, Mary returned to South Carolina to become a teacher at the school she had once attended. Mary was so determined to educate young African American children, and no one was going to stop her. After several years of being a teacher, Mary decided to start a school of her own. She especially wanted to teach African American girls, as many still did not receive an education. Mary had heard about a town in Florida called Daytona Beach. A new railroad was being built there, and many of the workers were African American men. The workers' families lived in camps. Their children did not go to school, and the men earned just about enough money to feed their families. Mary saw this as a great opportunity and came up with a plan. With just $1.50 in her pocket, Mary moved to Daytona Beach, Florida, and opened her own school for African American girls. Look at all of the girls in this school. Because remember, boys were able to go to school, girls were not. So Mary specifically opened up a school where these African American girls could attend and learn. A kind woman offered Mary a place to live. A friend helped her find an empty house and later became the new school. Old, broken furniture was fixed. Boxes and packing crates from local stores became desks and chairs. And in the autumn of 1904, Mary opened her own school. In the beginning, there were just 6 students, including Mary's own son. Gradually, more and more students came. Each girl paid 50 cents a week for tuition. So what that means is they had to pay 50 cents a week in order to go to school. Mary taught them cooking and sewing, as well as reading, writing, and math. There was never enough money, so Mary baked pies and cookies to sell. Not everyone liked what Mary was doing. One night while Mary was at school, all the street lights went out. When Mary looked out onto the street, she saw a group of people gathered together. They intended to scare Mary in the hope that she would close her school and leave town. Mary would not be bullied. As the group of people stood in a pool of light, Mary and the frightened girls watched and sang songs. Before long, the people scattered or left. 3 years later, Mary moved her school to a new location, a 32-acre farm with 14 buildings. The 400 students at the school grew their own food. Mary was very proud of what she had achieved. So that was a pretty big deal back then, is that she was able to go and buy land that was 32 acres, and on that land were 14 buildings. And that would be a place where these students could go and learn. Later, Mary's school joined with the School for African American Boys and eventually became the Bethune-Cookman University. So this would be a college, turn into a college. Mary's school started with 5 young African American girls and her son. It eventually became a 4-year university with over 1,000 students that actually still exists today. Mary became the president of the school. However, Mary wasn't quite finished. There was more work to be done. Mary opened up her own hospital. Many African Americans received treatment in Mary's hospital. In addition to promoting education and health care, Mary joined forces with various groups who were campaigning for the right for women to vote. As you remember, about 100 years ago, women were not able to vote. So Mary joined forces to push to have women to vote. As you have already discovered, in the early 1900s, women could not vote. Because she believed all people had the right to an education and to have books to read, Mary opened up a library that provided free reading material to anyone who wanted it. Mary was doing amazing things. During this time, African American men did have the right to vote, but they weren't always able to. In order to vote, men had to be able to read and write. Mary held classes at night so that the African American men who had not had the opportunity to go to school could learn these skills and therefore be able to vote. Once again, people tried to scare Mary away. They did not like what she was doing. Mary ignored them and continued her work. Mary always believed in the power of education. "The whole world opened to me when I learned to read," she once said. Mary's efforts had not gone unnoticed. 3 U.S. presidents asked Mary for advice. President Coolidge invited her to attend his child welfare conference. President Hoover asked her to head up the White House Conference on Child Health. And President Roosevelt named her as Special Advisory on Minority Affairs. Mary also became a founder and the first president of the National Council of Negro Women. For many years, Mary worked closely with Eleanor Roosevelt. Mary became director of the Division of Negro Affairs and of National Youth Administration. She was the first African American woman to become head of a federal agency or organization. Mary wanted all African Americans to become fully involved in American society, which is just outside the way of life for American people. Mary received many honors for her work. She received the Springer Medal for her efforts in educating African Americans. This medal is given each year by the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, also abbreviated or known as the NAACP, to an African American. As you have already heard, Mary was part of a group of advisors known as the Black Cabinet. Mary herself asked President Roosevelt to choose more talented African Americans for important jobs. Today, we have an African American president. Well, not today, but when this was written, we did. Do you remember who that president was? Yep, Barack Obama. Without people like Mary, it's possible that this might never have happened. Mary McLeod Bethune died on May 18, 1955. On July 10, 1974, 99 years to the day after Mary's birth, a statue of Mary was placed in Lincoln Park in Washington, D.C. Mary was the first woman and the first African American to be honored in this way. A portrait of Mary hangs in the state capitol of South Carolina, a great honor for a woman who fought against discrimination and worked tirelessly for young African Americans. So this is Mary McLeod Bethune with the children that she helped. All right, boys and girls, don't forget to answer the question below. Have a good day. Bye.